Recording in progress.
All right, good morning, everyone. It is 9 a.m. and I will call this meeting to order. Let's start with a round of introductions. I'm Nancy Wise, Commissioner and Chair.
Pat Malone, Commissioner and Vice Chair.
Zan Ojuro, Commissioner.
Vance Cronin, County Council.
Matt Weatherall, Acting County Administrator.
Then we will go to the audience next for introductions. For anyone who would like to introduce themselves. All right, and then we will go to online for anyone who would like to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Richard Weber.
And I see we have Sheriff Van Arsdal with us. Is there anyone else online who would like to introduce themselves? All right. Moving into announcements. Are there any announcements? Hearing none. That will take us to comments from the public. And I have a list of a couple people so far. We will start in the room and then move to public comment online. First on my list, I have Eileen Stark. Please correct my pronunciation if I got that wrong. And
Right.
okay, perfect. You can have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you, commissioners. Good morning. My name is Eileen Stark. So I want to start off by saying that I am very frustrated and disappointed that I have to even be here today to defend an ordinance that was fully discussed, debated, and well informed by science and evidence in 2018. I'm referring to the ordinance banning the use of wild and exotic animals in traveling animal acts. I was the lead advocate who met with the Board of Commissioners in 2018 about the issues that are systemic in this industry. I provided a body of information that informed your decision. I worked directly with County Council on this ordinance. And the ordinance meets your intent, which is to stop perpetuating the suffering of wild and exotic animals in the Traveling Animal Act industry. I had no idea that the Fair Board was working to repeal this ordinance until I read it in last Tuesday's newspaper. This is the same board that in 2018 recused itself from addressing this matter due to conflict of interest and referred this matter to you. And yet the Fair Board has been working on this repeal for at least 2 years for the purpose of financial gain. As a lead of this ordinance, I feel I should have been notified and included in any process to change it. I believe I was intentionally excluded from this process. Everything about the Fair Board process and their recommendations is disingenuous and flawed. As I explained in my letter, the Fair Board has misled you with misinformation and false assertions. They've distracted you from the serious animal welfare problems that this ordinance addresses. This is insulting to your intelligence and to those of us who worked long and hard to provide you with substantiated information to ensure that your decision and the ordinance was well informed and based on fact. The lack of honesty, transparency, and inclusivity in this process is extremely troubling to me and should be to this board. A permit program will do nothing to address the numerous animal welfare issues inherent in this industry. The very nature of traveling animal acts requires constant travel, severe confinement, and in no way can this meet the complex needs of wild and exotic animals. You understood this from the information we provided in 2018. A 3-day ban on bull hooks and whips or 3 days of clean bedding does not does nothing to address the suffering that continues for the other 362 days a year. This ordinance considers reality beyond 3 days. This ordinance and the species ban is not unique. There are similar bans in 137 local and state jurisdictions across the US. This board
Thank
made
you.
a
If you could
well-informed
please wrap up.
unanimous decision.
Could you please wrap up? Thank you.
I will. This board made a well-informed unanimous decision in 2018 that elevated the collective consciousness and compassion of our community. I respectfully request that you stop this scheme to repeal the ordinance. And I also request the opportunity to meet with you to discuss this further to help ensure that your decisions are again well-informed. Thank you.
Thank you. So next on the list, I have Nettie Schwager. Please come forward and please correct my pronunciation if I got that wrong.
That is correct.
All right, and we will start the 3 minutes when you start.
Okay, I'll make it brief. By definition, any kind of traveling act using wild animals is cruel. There is no way to meet the needs of these animals. How many hours a day are they chained up? How many weeks of the year are they on the road being shipped by train or truck from city to city like a piece of cargo? It's impossible. If you wanted to make the situation humane, you couldn't. Can you release these animals to go out and roam for hours a day like they would in the wild for miles and miles? It's just impossible. It's terribly cruel, and the ordinance as it was passed should stay. I'm going to actually read from a letter to the editor that I wrote years ago on this subject. So it's my own words I'm reading, but I'm a little nervous, so it'd be good if I read it. There is a consensus among animal welfare experts, animal behaviorists, veterinarians, biologists that life for animals in the circus is not a life worth living, that the needs, instincts, and freedoms these animals require are compromised, and that these animals suffer profoundly. Jane Goodall is the most famous of these experts. Professor Stephen Harris conducted a study of 764 scientific reports and peer-reviewed articles and consulted 658 experts and came to the above conclusions. This letter was written years ago. So nearly 40 nations have banned animal circuses due to the cruelty. I mean, you know, the ordinance was a mark of progress, and it would be a real backsliding to stop it. You know, I mean, this is 2022, and we just shouldn't be doing this anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up on my list, I have Ann Krager, who I believe is online.
Yes,
Ann, go ahead.
thank you. Yeah, I'd like to cede my minutes to Eileen Stark.
All right, Arlene, if you'd like to come back up and have 3 more minutes.
Just a few more points that I wanted to make. As far as the permit suggesting that this matter, well, first of all, it's trying to pull on issues that have no bearing on this matter at all. There's no conservation issue that we're discussing with this ordinance. This is about the animal welfare of the animals that are being brought here inside of trucks and as she said, cargo. So a number of the issues that were mentioned in the January 2021 Fair Board letter are irrelevant to this matter. I can't for the life of me understand why they're citing CITES, the International Convention on Animal Species Conservation. This is not a conservation measure. This is a measure about animal welfare, period. There is practically no state or federal oversight to speak of, as we explained and demonstrated in 2018. The idea that this can be handled with a permit is completely just a false statement. This is completely misrepresenting the facts. The existing state and federal rules are ineffective. And this is, as I said, has been well documented. The state doesn't even rely on its own animal welfare standards for guidance. The idea that the county can provide oversight is just meant to appease and distract from the real issues. There is no one with the expertise to understand all the various animal welfare issues, the physical, the mental, the behavioral, the social issues that these animals endure when they are literally living on the backs of trucks for most of the year. But again, that's kind of off point because we're talking about avoiding, preventing from bringing these animals here in the first place. The species list that was also brought up in the Fair Board's letter and as support for their repeal, this is a finite list. It does not include any domestic or livestock animals. It was not meant to include horses. That was a mistake that we tried to correct, but that edit was not accepted. So inadvertently, horses were included on the list, but they were never intended to be. It doesn't include birds, amphibians, and most reptiles, all but 3 reptiles. So this is focused on mammals and some species of shark, as you've seen, that have the most suffering, that would suffer the most in this industry or that do suffer the most. And so I can't stress enough, we have researched this issue so well in 2018. We provided so much information to you, and there has been a plethora of new information since then. So the science is there.
Thank you. If you could please wrap up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on my list, I have Eileen Stark. Eileen, go ahead and unmute yourself and you can have up to 3 minutes.
Great, thank you and good morning. A few years ago, when I heard about the Ray petting exhibit and complaints from the community, my first thought was that the ordinance is doing its job. You don't have to be a scientist to make sense of it. Simply Googling the scientific name of any particular species will inform anyone who has a question. I have a biology degree, but I have to look up animal classifications that are etched in my brain, and it just takes a few seconds. The basic concept of the ordinance is really pretty easy to understand. Generally, the purpose and intent is to ban all wild and exotic species in traveling acts with certain exemptions. For example, companion animals like dogs or farmed animals like horses. It was never about banning only the most commonly used animals in circuses like elephants and tigers. Horses and other farmed animals and companion animals were discussed at length and were never intended to be banned. Circuses are entertainment, not education. Watching wild animals perform unnatural tricks doesn't teach kids to respect them or learn what it means to be wild. Instead, they teach them that it's okay to exploit and mistreat animals for amusement. And they don't help conservation of wild animals. Captive breeding programs do nothing to address the real threats that animals face in the wild, like loss of habitat, trophy hunting, and poaching. Public opposition to traveling animal acts is growing. More than 2/3 of Americans say they're concerned about the use of animals in circuses and such. And 49 countries prohibit or limit the use of animals in traveling acts. And 111 jurisdictions in the US have passed partial or full ban. And there are some really amazing animal-free circuses out there that are extremely popular and very profitable. Bernardo Circus is an animal-free circus that comes to Oregon. They were in Deschutes County this summer, and as well as Portland. And Ringling Brothers Circus, which shut down 5 years ago, partly due to public attitudes about animals in captivity, is reportedly coming back with an animal-free circus starting next fall. So I highly urge you to keep the ordinance the way it is and let it do its job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have a Richard Weber. Welcome, Richard. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. The permit system that's being proposed in place of the Traveling Animal Act ordinance is basically what the county used before the ordinance. And it'll do nothing to address the animal welfare issues that are systemic and deep-rooted in the Traveling Animal Act industry. For one thing, there's little to no oversight by the USDA of this industry, so a USDA permit really means nothing. The USDA is known for lax enforcement of the Animal Welfare Act, and oversight of training methods is virtually non-existent. Even if there was someone local with unbiased experience to the needs of all the wild or exotic animal species used in these traveling acts, it still wouldn't address the bigger issue that the ordinance speaks to, which is to stop perpetuating the abuse that's inherent in this industry. Plus, oversight by local animal control and wildlife agencies is expensive and wastes the time and resources of the local people. Permits also do nothing to address public health and safety issues. Keeping large, unpredictable, and potentially dangerous animals and distressed wild or exotic animals in flimsy temporary enclosures in close proximity to the public has proven disastrous in the past. Workers and the public have been killed or maimed. Lions, tigers, and elephants have escaped. About 12% of Asian and 2% of African elephants in North America have tuberculosis, which is transmissible to humans. Most elephants with active disease show no clinical signs. It's become clear that the Fair Board has misinformed the Commission in its interpretation of the ordinance and its intent and its rationale for a repeal. I strongly urge the Commission to stop this process and leave the well-researched and well-planned ordinance in place. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else online who would like to provide public comment today? Hearing none, is there anyone else in the room who would like to provide comment today? Hearing none. And with that, I will just mention, I will say thank you for everyone who has come here today to testify and those of you joining us online. It is a topic that we will be discussing at a future board meeting, so stay tuned. And Commissioner Ojo, did you want to say anything?
I just also wanted to acknowledge that, thank you, and that the issues are complex. And we haven't gotten to the heart of where the friction is. I'm hoping we will get there. And we have not taken any action yet to change the actual ordinance. So thank you for approaching now and stepping in to take part in the conversation as we move forward.
All right. And with that, we will move on to review and approve the agenda. I believe Teresa Farley had asked us to talk about the STIF appointment, and she said she was going to send information to us. I've not had a chance to see if that happened yet, but we can tack that on to the end. And then Commissioner Ojiro, I know a while back you wanted to talk about the Vietnam War Memorial. Are you prepared or willing to talk about that today?
Willing, prepared is another matter.
Okay. Well, we will add that on to the back as well. Any other changes to the agenda?
So I just want to clarify. So Erica, the conversation about the STIF appointments is going to be 5.1 and discussion about the Vietnam Memorial is going to be 5.2.
Thank you, County Council. All right, so with that, we will move into the work session. And first up, we have Benton County Talks Trash Work Group member vacancy replacement with Darren Nichols, our Community Development Director. Welcome, Director Nichols.
Good morning, Commissioner Wise and members of the board. I hope this is a fairly straightforward action item today. You all did a nice job of appointing the work group back in August, and the work group is now off and running. But one of your original appointees discovered a personal conflict, a family conflict, and asked to resign from the appointment. So you have one vacant seat to fill. And before we jump into it, I just want to point out what's in front of you and also recognize that our work group facilitator, Sam Imperati, is joining us remotely today as well. So you have 5 documents in front of you, a short memo from me explaining a little bit about the lists that are in front of you. And then there are 4 attachments. The first attachment is a list of individuals who have joined the first 2 work group meetings remotely. And not everyone puts their full name in their kind of video presence. So you'll see some kind of cryptic pseudonyms in there. I don't know who those people are, and I just apologize upfront that we don't know who all joins us. The other thing I would mention is that we've had a sign-up sheet out front both meetings, and people who have attended, which has been 15 to 20 individuals, have not signed those sheets. So that's just something for you to be aware of. Attachment B includes a list of parties who originally formally expressed interest. So they sent in a response to our request for formal applications. You've looked at that list before, and indeed many of those names are actually appointed to the work group. Attachment C includes a list of parties who have requested to be included in the email updates for the project. So that's a fairly lengthy and growing list of people. They have not expressed interest in participating actively in the work group, but they are interested. And I thought it was helpful for you to see that. I apologize for the font. When these got converted to PDF, they're much less legible than they were on my computer screen. So I apologize for that. And then last but not least, attachment D includes the work group charter. And the work group charter that is posted online has the names of the current work group members. The ones that I attached for you does not. So I must apologize again. I have that list with me if you don't have that of the current work group names. So if you want to think about kind of who is existing on there, I realized that as I was walking in the room. So that's what you have. That's the materials that you have in front of you. We're asking that you fill 1 vacancy. And given the fact that we are through the first 2 meetings of an an anticipated 8 meeting project, it would be important, we think, to find an individual who is more or less versed on these issues and up to speed with the process as much as possible. And also that we ask that the board be mindful of the need for a balanced representative group that represents the breadth of perspectives across Benton County as much as possible. So I think at that, I'll just stop and see if you have questions or from me or Sam.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments, or should we start throwing out names, or what do the commissioners think? I have a couple that rose to the top of my list, but I'm happy to hear. I was thinking Catherine Bisco could be a good addition, or Ken Keniston. Happy to hear my fellow commissioners' thoughts as well.
Catherine Bisco was on my short list. I've worked with her a little bit, and the reason I didn't reach out to her initially was just she's a busy person.
She is very busy.
But I mentioned it, and I think she's been to both meetings. So I've been impressed with her just diving in, and as far as I can tell, doesn't have any agenda. Is just interested in the topic as a community member. So that's what I had.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Drill.
Well, I guess my perspective has been a little bit different, given that a couple of the neighbor advocates are also role members for the Solid Waste Advisory Committee and for the Planning Commission. I was thinking that we could choose someone that actually lives closer to the landfill and that is more of a neighbor to fill that seat, so that there was someone that didn't have to double up the role appointment and serving as an advocate for the neighborhood. Because I think we've put those folks in a pretty tough position, playing a dual role. So I was really looking for someone that was more of a near neighbor. And I don't know from these lists exactly who that is. I do know that both Ken Eklund and Kanaga and Eklund have both come and spoken to us on multiple occasions. But again, that's about all the information I have. So yeah, that's
Okay.
my perspective. I'm coming from a different perspective.
Sure, I appreciate that. And I'm not sure where Ken Keniston lives. I don't recall.
He lives in town near the university.
But he has been involved with the planning commission for years and is somewhat familiar with these sorts of issues. And I believe the goal is to appoint someone today because the next meeting is coming up soon. Is that correct, Derek?
Next week.
October 6th.
October 6th. Okay.
Yeah, Thursday, October 6th.
So the hope is that we do appoint someone today. Is that correct?
That would be ideal in order to give the individual as much time as possible to review the materials and get ready for that October 6th meeting.
Okay. Is there more discussion or would someone like to make a motion?
I'll move to appoint, second here. My dramatic pause. I move to appoint Catherine Bisco to replace the vacancy on the Benton County Talks Trash Work Group with a community member consistent with the board's adopted charter.
Do I hear a second? I will second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
All right, motion passes 2-3.
Can I just offer one comment? You had both mentioned that this woman is a very busy individual because we do have a meeting coming up next week. Do you want to consider appointing or recommending an alternative in case Ms. Briscoe declines the opportunity?
May I also make another comment?
Yes.
Catherine Bisco is currently the alternate for Christopher McMorrin. So
The alternate what?
she's the alternate for Christopher McMorrin,
Gotcha.
That's correct.
and he would need another alternate.
Yeah. Is there, I would be happy to
I'm
talk about
just
a backup if we
I'm
have.
just pointing out that you could be
names.
right back here next Tuesday.
Sure. Yeah, if anyone is ready to put forward a name that they would like as second choice. Have as many dramatic pauses as we need.
You mentioned Ken Keniston. Any idea of what his time or interest situation is?
I have not spoken to him recently, so I can't say that for sure.
He's retired, but hopefully traveling a lot. I also would support Jeffrey Morrell as a member. He's an immediate neighbor. He's the fellow that has previously served on SWAC, but he's been out of the country for a couple of years, and is just returning. But I think that he's tried to keep up. I'm not sure if he's been able to attend virtually, but would be another consideration.
Okay, would you like to make a motion?
I move that we appoint Jeffrey Morrell as the to fill the vacancy on the Benton County Talks Trash.
In the event Ms. Briscoe is not able to fulfill it.
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I
Motion carries. All right,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Do we need to do anything else or are we good to move on?
unless you have questions for me or Sam, I think that fills the slots, and the work group is doing well. They're getting their feet under them and moving forward, and I feel good about the direction they're headed. And I think that these two individuals will add to that conversation. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Sam. You two have a wonderful day. Get some sunshine. All right. So I believe we said item 5.1 was the STIF appointment. And I apologize, I am looking for that. There we go. What was sent Monday at 11 a.m. So I believe the main question was whether or not to appoint Bob Keith and what area of representation he would hold. In the ordinance, we have a list of, I believe it's 4 categories that we need to fill, and then there's an additional list of categories that it says maybe people may represent these areas. And so the way I was reading that is they may or they may not. You know, if we need to appoint a whole board and we have a willing person, should we move forward with appointing him even if it doubles up in one area? Or is it worth holding off and waiting for another round of applications to try to fill one of those additional may categories?
My opinion is that we should hold the position open. We have the 4 mandatory seats covered, so the board can do their business, they can begin. But given that the special transportation, what does STIF stand for now?
Special Transportation Infrastructure.
Yeah, STIF stood for 2 different
Yeah.
things, and with the merged committees, I'm not sure what the new acronym actually represents. But given that the
State Transportation Improvement Fund Advisory
good,
Committee.
thank you. So it's got a broader mandate. So it includes bike ped, transit, and special transportation. But the folks that typically are underrepresented in this kind of an environment are those that need the special transportation and people that are clearly low income. And I think that I personally would prefer to find another member that could represent either a member of the broader disability community or someone that is a low income transit rider that actually depends on the service rather than a bicycle advocate at this time, because we already have one bicycle advocate. And I just feel that we need to have more representation from the people for whom the transit system is so critical.
Sure. And I think you make a very good case. That all makes a lot of sense. I guess where I was coming from was the fact that we got as many applicants as we got. We didn't have any additional applications. You know, I felt like Bob could do a good job. However, I'm flexible if we think that we can spend a little more time to go out and re-advertise and get some more applications to fill an additional criteria there, then if that's what the board wants to do, then we can do that.
My preference would be a little bit more time for recruitment and hold Bob Keith's application and you know, don't toss it off.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Commissioner Malone.
I think taking more time makes sense. This is a new board and newly reformed, and making sure we've got all the slots filled that we want to, I think makes sense.
Okay. County Council, do we need to make a motion?
You don't. I do want to make 2 points, though. One, Commissioner Ogerow is spot on. You can't hold that application. The second point I would make is that you had mentioned, Commissioner Wise, about going out and advertising again. I'm not certain that same advertisement is going to generate any different pools. So you might want to have a conversation with whoever puts the notice out about trying a different target audience, a different way to get notice out, just to generate more notice amongst the community you're trying to attract interest in.
Sure. Can we, I guess, put that on the acting in charge county administrator's radar to pass along that message for outreach and maybe targeted in a different way.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other comments or questions on this topic?
No, just glad it's getting going.
Yes, same here. And I thank everyone for having the conversation. I think it's good. Good to do it this way. Okay. So next, 5.2, we had the question of if we wanted to make a donation to the Vietnam War Memorial Fund. And we have received emails. I think we received some last year and then this year. And I have some information in front of me. I admit I have not perused it really, other than just reading their emails. Would you like to?
I'd like to speak to it, sure. We do not have proportionally as many veterans in Benton County as they do in some places around the state, but we do have many veterans here. Many of our veterans don't seek services, so they're not counted among the count, partly because they may be affiliated with organizations like the university or Hewlett Packard, and they don't feel like they need VA services, so they just don't end up in the numbers. I'm married to a Vietnam vet, so I do have some bias here as well. But I would like to contribute, even if it's just a small contribution. The email that was sent to us indicated the great range of contributions from other counties, anything from $500 to $10,000 towards the Vietnam Veterans Memorial intended for the state capitol. And I would be happy to contribute in the realm of $500 to $1,000 towards that memorial, just to help them along the way to make sure it's a reality.
Sure, and I think $1,000 sounds good. Commissioner Malone?
Yeah, I guess my only comment, like you said, Commissioner Wise, we've received requests, I think, past at least a couple of years, and that this is a one-time donation.
Yes, agreed. One-time donation. All right. Would you like to make a motion, Commissioner Odro?
I would move that we make $1,000 commitment to the Vietnam War Memorial Fund to make sure that the Vietnam War Memorial becomes a reality on the Oregon State Capitol grounds.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. Now, is there anything else for the good of the order? Hearing none. With that, I will adjourn the meeting at 9:38 a.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.